Watching Global Mirror, I'm Shreya Upadhyaya. 20th January is the day when Donald Trump will return to the Oval Office. And a lot has been happening in the United States of America. Joe Biden gave his farewell address. He's demitting office and a new president will be sworn in on the 20th. Let's first tell you about Joe Biden and his last address to Americans. It has been a privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter from modest beginnings one day sit in the Oval Office. History is in your hands. This is how Joe Biden summed up his last 4 years in a farewell letter. In his last address as President of the United States, Biden listed out his government's achievements and warned Americans of what he called is disinformation spreading in US and oligarchy. On the 20th of January, as Donald Trump will be sworn in, many would remember Biden's presidency as a man who became the victim of internal politics of the Democratic Party towards the end of his 50-year political career. Now, as he exits the White House, Biden's approval ratings are at one of their lowest marks. Only 39% have a positive view of him, which is down from 57% at the start of his term. From Afghanistan and Bidenomics to COVID crisis to issues like Roe versus Wade and infant formula, and eventually the two wars, the Biden presidency has been wrought with its own ups and downs. Take a look at what Biden leaves behind.
Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States.
the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability,
So help me God.
congratulations, Mr.
Thank
President.
On 20th January 2021, Joe Biden took the oath of office as the 46th President of the United States, stepping into a role filled with high hopes and immense challenges. His presidency has been a complex journey marked by notable triumphs, persistent struggles, and polarizing controversies. Yet, despite the promise of a transformative era, his tenure ultimately fell short of lofty expectations. For many, what might have been the legacy of a seasoned statesman instead feels overshadowed by setbacks and unfulfilled ambitions. In a dramatic plot twist, the man Biden sent packing in 2020 is back in the driver's seat. A turn of events that rains on the parade of his presidency, leaving a legacy that might feel more like a house of cards than a victory lap for his supporters.
Unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death, unvaccinated.
President Biden began his term with bold actions. The American Rescue Plan Act delivered $1.9 trillion in economic relief, helping millions of Americans during the pandemic. He championed infrastructure modernization with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, investing $1.2 trillion to rebuild roads, bridges, and broadband.
As we close this historic summit, I want to take a moment to thank the world leaders and all the participants from around the globe who have joined together to confront the existential threat of climate change. There's no threat like it.
On climate change, Joe Biden rejoined the Paris Agreement and introduced policies to combat the crisis, including the creation of the American Climate Corps. Biden's nomination of Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court was historic, marking a new milestone in judicial diversity. Internationally, he united NATO allies in the face of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, providing crucial support to the Ukrainian people. Joe Biden and his team faced a storm of events. Some they could control, others beyond their grasp. Yet many of the most damaging moments were not just predictable, they were predicted. Immigration reform remained elusive as the Biden administration faced criticism for its handling of the southern border. The chaotic 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan became a defining moment of Biden's presidency. The swift Taliban takeover, desperate scenes at the Kabul airport, and a deadly bombing highlighted the poor planning and drew bipartisan criticism, leaving a lasting stain on his foreign policy legacy. Navigating a divided party tested his leadership, as tensions between moderates and progressives stalled landmark legislations like the Build Back Better Act. Concerns about his age and mental fitness became prominent, culminating in his decision not to seek re-election for 2024. Joe Biden's legacy is one of complexity. His presidency delivered transformative policies in infrastructure, climate, and healthcare. Yet these achievements were overshadowed by economic struggles and foreign policy missteps.
Post-Cold War period is over. A new era has begun. In these 4 years, we faced crises that we've been tested. We've come through those tests stronger, in my view, than we entered those tests. Right now, in my view, thanks to our administration, the United States is winning the worldwide competition. Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. Now, make no mistake, there are serious challenges the United States must continue to deal with in Ukraine, in the Middle East, in the Indo-Pacific, and we're leaving them. And America, with more friends and stronger alliances, whose adversaries are weaker and under pressure. And America, that once again is leading.
By the way, I got in trouble.
Joe Biden may be remembered as a transitional leader, striving for unity in a deeply divided era. Amid crises like a pandemic, economic instability, and political polarization, his presidency symbolized the struggle between aspirations for progress and the harsh realities of discord. Bureau Report, Mirror Now. Now, days ahead of his inauguration as the US president, the charges against Donald Trump do not seem to end, at least on paper. Special counsel Jack Smith released a report this week on Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Here's what the report states. The through line of all of Mr. Trump's criminal efforts was deceit, knowingly false claims of election fraud, and the evidence shows that Mr. Trump used these lies as a weapon to defeat a federal government function foundational to the United States democratic process, unquote. It also laid out the challenges that investigators faced during investigation, including Trump's assertion of executive privilege to try to block witnesses from providing evidence and using his influence on social media to target witnesses, courts, and prosecutors. Trump, meanwhile, responded by saying that the voters have spoken and that he is totally innocent, while also calling Smith a lame-brain prosecutor. The report, which was released just days before Trump is to return to the White House on the 20th of January, attempts to bring to light the frantic effort that Republicans made to cling to power back in 2020. I had a conversation on this earlier this week. Take a look. Donald Trump isn't wrong when he says that the voters have spoken. I am back to the White House. On 20th January, he'll be inaugurated as the next US president. So why release the report now? Why didn't you release it at that point in time?
So,
yeah,
I believe there was a judge in Florida had ordered it not to be released. The Trump legal team had been trying to stop the release. And the federal judge in Florida, even though I don't believe she had authority over this report, she had basically asked them not to release it. And then they appealed it up to the Court of Appeals. And the Federal Court of Appeals they literally said, we stay it for 3 days until we look at it. And then they said, you can release it. So I believe that's what the delay in time was that Trump was trying to stop it.
Sure, but what impact would it have, even if that is permitted now and Judge Cannon had, not allowed it earlier? What impact would it have it now?
Well, so he was appointed as special counsel for the Justice Department, which is the prosecutors for the American people. And even though he didn't have time because he was appointed too late, he did do an investigation. And normally investigations in America, they're public. If they're done by a police or the feds, they're public information. And even though it didn't get to trial, his report is basically public in the U.S. I don't know how it is in India, but things done by elected officials or appointed officials, prosecutors, that's all public record. So, and the American people wanted to know why he brought these charges, because a lot of people believe there was no basis for it, and he's letting people know there was a basis for it. It just didn't end up in a conviction.
Vibhuti Jha, what many say about this report coming out now, it being released right now, is the fact that perhaps not right now, but a few months down the line, when this entire celebration around Donald Trump winning, slows down a bit, dies down a bit, is when probably Democrats can use this against Donald Trump.
Yeah, you're asking me. Yeah, this is a very, serious situation in America. A country of laws seems to be having real tragedy with laws in this country right now. I have switched from being a Democrat to independent to now Republican. Now, whatever has happened, as they say that, justice is the biggest thing in the world in democracies. But what we are looking at today is that a very great possibility that the Democratic Party or the opponents of Trump insinuated all these things because he was a presidential candidate. Had he not been a presidential candidate on his own statement, none of it would be happening. What would happen to the rule of law then? Whether you are a presidential candidate or not, or whether you are in a political process or not, he ought to have been tried if he has committed a crime. The issue here is very important, that when Jack Smith, who himself is a very remarkably suspect person in Department of Justice and FBI, he was investigating it, is everybody now knows. And that's why this election was important. Nothing could have done Trump a favor by not winning the election of 2020. It's a political issue, not a justice matter. Even in January 6th insurrection issue, which is all at the bottom of it all, you know now that he was not even given a moment to appear before Jan 6 committee. It is a one-sided report. Anybody who has any amount of sanity left would definitely want to know that in a country that is called a due process of law, the man who is accused was never given a chance to present his side of the story.
All right, one deal, many claimants. Israel and Hamas might have reached an agreement on the release of the hostages, but it has led to another war in the United States. US President Joe Biden hailed what he called many months of intensive diplomacy and how after 15 months of terror, the hostages will be back home.
I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. More than 15 months of conflict, more than 15 months of terror for the hostages, their families, the Israeli people, more than 15 months of suffering by the innocent people of Gaza. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families.
On the other hand, President-elect Donald Trump is the one who announced to the world the news about the agreement much before Biden did. He posted, and I quote, "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you," unquote. At a White House briefing on Wednesday, Biden said he was deeply satisfied this day has come and called the negotiations some of the toughest of his career. while Biden has been saying that the framework for the agreement follows the precise contours of a plan which he first introduced in May 2024, Trump said that the epic agreement was only possible because he won the November presidential election. Meanwhile, at the end of the news conference, when Biden was asked who should take credit for the deal, here's what he had to say.
Who does the history books credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh.
Now, despite these contrasting messages coming out of Washington, the two administrations are desperately trying to take credit for this huge relief. All right, moving on, let's talk about Trump's latest picks. President-elect Donald Trump is hoping to make Hollywood stronger than ever before as he named senior actors Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson and Jon Voight as special ambassadors whose goal will be to bring back business lost to foreign countries. Trump's announcement came just a few days before his inauguration in Washington, D.C., and wildfires that have destroyed thousands of homes and buildings in southern Los Angeles, including those of celebrities. Many businesses are struggling to recover, and the cost is estimated to be around $250 billion. The domestic box office in 2024 was also down, as Hollywood was hit by the 2023 strike by actors and writers. Let's tell you more about the inauguration day now. On the 20th of January, Donald Trump, the 45th and soon to be the 47th President of the United States, will be inaugurated in Washington. Huge crowds of supporters are expected to gather as Trump 2.0 leads in an astonishing political comeback. Now, with security screenings around the city, Chief Justice John Roberts will administer the oath of office to Donald Trump on the west front of the Capitol Hill, where Trump will place his hand on a Bible and recite the 35-word presidential oath. On 20th, the world will have its eyes on the very same Capitol Hill which once saw Trump supporters vandalizing the iconic building. And they'll see the man who didn't get bogged down by assassination attempts against him.
We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will never give in. We will never give up.
January 20th, 2025 will be marked in the history books forever. Donald J. Trump returns to the White House, not just as a former president, but also as the 47th President of the United States. After twice being impeached, battling legal challenges and defying countless odds, Trump makes his triumphant return. Today, America witnesses not just the comeback of a presidency, but the start of a new chapter in political history. Trump's path to the White House has been anything but smooth, more of a political demolition derby with plenty of crashes and burns along the way. His first impeachment in 2019 was tied to the Ukraine scandal, which painted him as a leader willing to exchange political favors for personal gain. But like a political phoenix, he rose from the flames after a Senate acquittal in 2020, a moment that set the stage for a second re-election battle. In 2021, however, things took a darker turn after the January 6th Capitol riot, when Trump faced a second impeachment for inciting an insurrection. A rare bipartisan move saw 10 Republican lawmakers break ranks, voting to impeach him.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a witch hunt. It's a hoax. Thank you.
Despite the weight of the charges, Trump was acquitted once again. The nation was split. Some saw a victim of political persecution. Others saw a man continuously avoiding the consequences of his actions.
In Georgia,
I am tired of watching Americans be put last.
he wants you.
2024 wasn't just about rallies. It was about a political comeback. As Trump geared up for another shot at the presidency, the election was fraught with chaos and controversy. His challenger was a candidate as divisive as he was, and the nation was primed for yet another showdown at the ballot box. Amid new accusations of voter fraud and challenges to the integrity of the voting process, Trump and his allies did not back down. In fact, they doubled down, claiming that the 2024 election was rigged, continuing to stoke anger and division. The narrative that had powered his first campaign, fighting the system to reclaim America, was now more critical than ever. Trump's resilience was on full display as legal battles over election results dragged on. But unlike his first term, there was no stopping him from using every tool in his arsenal. He made sure that his message was front and center, whether it was on social media, rallies, or his own branded news network. As Trump prepared for the 2024 election, the media landscape was more fractured than ever. The rise of alternative media platforms gave Trump a powerful megaphone, enabling him to bypass traditional outlets that had once tried to hold him accountable. This time, he was more polished, more determined, and his base more motivated. His message was clear: make America great yet again.
We're never going to stop fighting for you, for your dreams.
Even with legal challenges looming, his political machine was in full swing, mobilizing millions of Americans who felt unheard. As traditional media questioned his every move, Trump found new ways to seize control of the narrative, turning every setback into a rallying cry.
Together we can truly make America great again. Really see something that said, take a look what happened.
What started as a typical campaign rally in 2024 quickly escalated into one of the most chilling moments in US political history. On the 13th of July, Trump narrowly survived an assassination attempt that left the nation shaken. From a rooftop, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks fired 8 shots from an AR-15 style rifle, grazing Trump's ear and leaving him bloodied but alive. Amid the chaos, Trump's defiance shone through. Long cast as a political outsider, he raised his bloodied fist and shouted, "Fight, fight, fight." A moment that reignited his base and embodied his vision of America's comeback. In January 2017, President Donald Trump had signed an executive order barring entry from 7 Muslim-majority countries: Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, alongside an indefinite suspension of Syrian refugees' resettlement. The policy sparked nationwide protests and legal battles, but in 2018, the US Supreme Court upheld a revised version, which added North Korea and certain Venezuelan officials to the list. By 2020, the ban expanded to 6 additional countries, including Nigeria, Myanmar, and Kyrgyzstan, targeting immigrant visas and implementing stricter vetting procedures. As Trump begins his second term in 2025, the return and expansion of travel bans appear imminent, with additional countries potentially added based on security evaluations. Stricter vetting and heightened immigration enforcement, including mass deportations, are anticipated. Refugee admissions, particularly from conflict zones, are likely to face severe restrictions, further reshaping US immigration policy.
Back in the White House, I'll terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration, stop the invasion.
On the 6th of November 2024, Donald Trump defied expectations once again, winning a decisive electoral college victory that shocked the world. Despite losing the popular vote, Trump clinched critical battleground states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, marking a dramatic political shift. His victory was a testament to the loyalty of his base and the political storm he had created.
No tax on tips.
His second term will not be without its challenges: criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and an increasingly polarized electorate. But Trump's ability to rally his supporters remains unmatched as he steps into his second term, the political landscape all set for a shakeup. Trump's return to the White House isn't just a personal victory. It's a cultural moment, a symbol of a nation divided and yet somehow united in its hunger for change. From political outsider to twice impeached president to now a second-term president, Trump's saga is one for the history books. His rise from the ashes reflects a nation struggling to define its future, one where the political game is anything but predictable.
Glorious nation under God.
Bureau Report,
We will
Mirror
never
Now.
give in. We will never give up.